So for my lesson plan this time, what I did was I used my lesson plan for Book Review 1 as like a framework, and I just kind of changed it a little bit to incorporate new strategies I've learned or to just better teach the lesson. So I used what I learned in this course to improve on it, and that way I can kind of see how I've improved based on my Book Review 1 lesson plan to our last lesson plan, which is this one. So the first thing that I would do, my lesson plan is on like the abolishment of slavery, how slaves lived, how Reconstruction kind of looked in the South. So the first thing we would do is my favorite strategy. It's called snowballing. I feel like it is a very engaging activity. I think that it's just a fun thing for students. So on the whiteboard behind me, it would say, how do you think slaves' lives looked? So I would just take my blank piece of paper and I would write something like overworked. And they can do 1 to 2 answers on there, and then they crumble it up into a ball, throw it up in the air, and then they find one close to them, open it, read that answer from that student, see how they feel about it, add their answer, and then you can continue 2 to 3 times. Then we would move into textbook reading, and then they would do historical pictorials, kind of including slaves and the white plantation owners, and just showing how their lives were before slavery, during slavery, and after slavery. And just kind of, that way they can see how the lives changed and see the history behind it. Then we would move into stations after they presented those. We would move into stations where they're not necessarily stations, but they're kind of like differentiation stations. So one group would write a letter to a historian or a plantation owner explaining why the slaves needed to be freed. Another group could write a letter to Abraham Lincoln, just telling them what they've learned. And then, the lower level students could just write a card to Abraham Lincoln, either drawing a picture or just 1 to 2 sentences explaining what they learned. And then for the closure, we would go back to the snowball strategy, read our answers, and kind of discuss how our opinions have changed, what we have learned, and that would be our wrap-up activity. And I just feel like this is a very engaging activity, very engaging lesson overall, and it kind of, sometimes it's hard to be hands-on with history. So the snowballing strategy, the historical pictorial, those are all very good ways to have students engaged in the lesson, and that's why I chose what I did for my lesson plan. So thanks.